Henry Jenkins is a professor from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He just relocated to California, where he's studying Hollywood. He wrote a book called Convergence Culture, which is about the relations of fans, video, technology, and the internet. He's one of the clearest and most effective thinkers in this line of work, Henry Jenkins. If you're into video and you want to know what video is going to look like in 10 years, you're into fandom, stardom, how these things work commercially, he's the man to watch. Now a second topic, augmented reality. I really love augmented reality. All science fiction writers like augmented reality. The thing that's of special interest is that it belongs to this decade. There really wasn't any effective augmented reality in the previous decade. It's something that's new and young. It's small, it's modern. It takes about $10 million to start an augmented reality company. There aren't any big ones. They're all small ones. They're all being founded by young people. They're all startup companies. They're operating under contemporary cultural conditions. They don't have a lot of overhead. They don't belong to the old schools of putting together media. What is at stake? What's at stake with augmented reality is whether it's just a feature, like a toy or a gimmick, or something on a pull-down menu, or whether it's really a medium, a new means of expressing that's like as important as, say, television or the internet. What to watch out for in augmented reality? Augmented reality doesn't know how big it is. It doesn't know what screens it belongs to. And the struggle in augmented reality is about the screens. Is it like something on a small screen that you pull out of your pocket and look at for 30 seconds and then put back? Is it just a small thing, like an SMS? Is it quick or is it light? Or is it a screen like this laptop, where I really sort of bend over the screen and interact with the augmented reality and commands into it and use my own video? Or is it a desktop-size augmented reality, like a game, where I really want to be immersed? I want bright colors, loud music. I want it to be like World of Warcraft. I want to involve myself with other people. But is it a kind of gaming platform? Or is it a projection system, like movies? Is it something that should be as big as a city? Should it be on walls? Should it be in buildings? Nobody knows the answer to that question. And the key to that struggle is a very technical issue. It's called registration. Nobody knows outside the world of augmented reality what registration is. Registration is difficult to explain, but if you want to know about augmented reality, the one thing you have to understand is registration. Registration is how to attach artificial pieces of input, video, pictures, into real three-dimensional spaces. How do you put them into a real space? How do you make them stick? That's the critical issue, registration. How do you learn more about augmented reality? You have to go onto video. You have to look on YouTube. You have to look on video. People in augmented reality do not have newspapers. They don't have magazines. They all communicate through video or through Twitter. And there are a few blogs. My blog has a lot of augmented reality in it. But it's a new form of expression by young people, which is mostly about engineering, designing, and communicating through video. It's small, it's a fun thing to watch. It's really a thing of this decade. That's why I'm very fond of it, even though it's still a very young industry and not yet very important. The third issue I want to talk about, cyber warfare. This too is something that was mostly theoretical. Over the past 20 or 30 years, everybody has known it is coming. Now it's really starting to come. We're really seeing revolutions in Egypt, and Tunisia, and Libya that are very clearly worked through electronic means. What is at stake is cyber warfare, governments, national interests. power. It's classic power struggle. People have different approaches to it. The recent advent of a device called Stuxnet was really the first shot fired in modern cyber warfare. Stuxnet was invented probably by the Americans and the Israelis in order to attack Iranian atomic bomb building efforts. That's a very serious matter. When you have two states using cyber warfare to crush an effort at nuclear arms, that's really cyber warfare is a geopolitical kind of thing. It's not an amateurish thing, it's not a hacker thing, that's a very consequential thing. It shows what this decade is going to be doing. Who does it? The Americans, of course, the Israelis do it, the Iranians do it, the Russians do it. There's a lot of Russian cyber warfare. There will be more probably in Georgia, Estonia. They're into DDoS attacks, the Russians. The Chinese are doing it. They're into intellectual property theft, espionage. They're not afraid to attack anyone. The Chinese attack Google. The Chinese attack RSA. Whenever you see the term advanced persistent threat being used, that almost always means the Chinese. It's an open secret. Everybody knows the Chinese are doing it. The Chinese know the Chinese are doing it. It's like any other kind of espionage underworld. It's just become something that intelligence agencies learn how to do, mostly because intelligence agencies are now full of people your age. People who used to be traditional analog spies are now cyber spies, and they all have computers just like everybody else. What to watch for? WikiLeaks. Not the WikiLeaks, but leaks by Leaks for National Advantage. So it happens that the WikiLeaks crew had American diplomatic cables, but practically every intelligence agency in the world has those diplomatic cables. They're not hard to get. It's just nobody leaked them because they didn't think it would make any difference. Now people recognize that leaking this sort of thing makes a difference, and you're very likely to see government documents being leaked by hostile governments. They won't go to the press. They'll simply open up a website somewhere and say, for instance, would you like to see every SMS sent by the President of India in the past 6 months? I think this is very likely to happen. Intelligence agencies already have these things. They just don't like to show their hand. But when they realize that they can put them on the net and really affect the course of politics and public events, you're going to see a lot of this. After the Egyptian revolution, you saw a lot of the revolutionaries go in and just start scanning and uploading documents for the secret police. That'll happen every time there's a revolution anywhere now. The governments will have everything laid open because it's a way to harm them, to destroy their interests, to wreck the previous regime. We're going to see cyber warfare take new shapes. It's not the end of the world that we have cyber warfare, it's just the kind of world we've created. You need to get used to it. How do you learn more? Well, you have to read about spies and intelligence agencies. It's a very paranoid thing to do. Everybody lies all the time. It's very difficult. You have to read crime news. But mostly, I think the thing that's important to look for is the timing of when these events happen. If you see a leak happen and it's also associated with something else, like, say, entry into the European Union, or a treaty being signed, or sanctions breaking out, and suddenly there's some huge scandalous leak or some kind of DDoS attack, that's a sign that it's cyber warfare rather than simply some kind of accident. If it's been timed for political, military, economic advantage, that's the sign that it's war. It's a struggle by other means. And you're seeing lots of struggles by new means. It's just a different decade, and it behaves in a different way. It's not something to panic about, it's just something to understand, It's just going to get close to the real feeling of a historical period. The world you're going to be facing is as mature adults. And then the last thing, social networking, network society of the 2010s. What is at stake here? Hierarchies versus networks. hierarchies, which were mostly analog and very old, versus network, which are mostly digital and very new. People power revolutions, flash mobs that take to the streets and don't go away. What to watch for? Mobs versus armies. It's very difficult to overthrow an army with a mob. This is the difficulty in Libya. There's a great popular uprising in Libya, but the army did not participate. So the population does not know how to use weapons. They can't militarily defeat the Libyan army. So they're simply walking around trying to learn how to have a fight that people power is not really equipped to fight. What will happen? Well, eventually, networks will have to replace hierarchical governments to the extent that they can. And networks are not very good at this. They're bad at the rule of law. They're bad at human rights. They have very severe structural issues. Facebook does not govern any towns. I think what to look for, how will you know when this is happening? It's when you see a network army or a network police. Because police and armies are the real sinew, they're the muscle of the state. The state has a monopoly on violence, and there has never been a network with a monopoly on violence. If we're the network, we have the guns. Somewhere that's likely to happen in the next 10 years. It might be a failed state, it might be a city, it might be a revolution that happens. Nobody has known how to create such a thing politically. It's really sort of a quest of your generation to come up with such a thing. Why will it happen? Mostly because the people who are entering the old hierarchies, the young bureaucrats, the young people in government are already attuned to networks. That war is already over. They already have cell phones. They're already on Facebook. They already use Twitter. They already use SMS. None of them will give it up in order to do more paperwork. So year by year, the old order will be eaten away. It will become Gothic. It will decay. It will be less and less popular allegiance to it. It will mean less and less. And the political vitality and our ability to command our own lives will depend on what we can do with these new structures. In conclusion, that is really a generational struggle. It's about hierarchies versus networks, but it's also about your generation versus hundreds of years of hierarchical prohibition. It's about history and futurity. And the people whose real lives at stake in this decision are not you. You're young people, but the people whose real issue is at hand, the people whose lives will really be affected by your decisions are your children. Your children who are not unborn. That's who you are struggling for. If you keep that in your mind, if you understand it's not about you and a struggle with the elderly people, but it's a struggle for the sake of those who come after you, then you will do well. Thank you.